Hi, friends. Welcome. Yeah, so today, this is going to be even more informal than it was last time if you came before, and even more informal than previous like live sessions that I've done in the past when I used to use Crowdcast, that terrible platform that I don't use anymore. Yeah, so it just seemed like it was a good day to take a look at what's going on because things are getting really active. And it's still so early because, as I've mentioned before, the Bitcoin halving is, I think, 35 days away. So, something I really want to stress if you're like newer to the sector is that this is unprecedented. Typically, so this is going to be the fourth Bitcoin halving in total in its 15-year-ish existence. And in the past, when we've had the three previous Bitcoin halvings, it wasn't until the halving happened that we then started to see the market really begin to pick up. And then, I mean, you could take a look at the historic price information to see for yourself if you want. But I'd say typically like 7 to 9-ish months after the halvening, we would then see the all-time highs established for that cycle. So the fact that we've already broken all-time highs 3 times this cycle, like well over a month before the halving is happening, is a big deal. I'm using the words halving and happening interchangeably. You're going to hear halving used more often today. People used to say happening more like, I don't know, 6 years ago. And I just picked it up then and I think it's more fun to say. Yeah, so this is a big deal. Basically, I've said this in our Discord if you've seen me talking about this there, but it's for sure like an almost certain contributor is the fact that Bitcoin ETFs, exchange traded funds, were introduced in January, I think on January 11th in the US this year. So that meant that people that were maybe more risk averse or just found crypto too difficult to deal with for whatever reason, but were traders like mainstream investors who would put money into the stock market now have this essentially like a stock form of Bitcoin to invest in. So the fact that that's available has like absolutely contributed to the price going up so much this early. And then the other important factor that made today significant is that Ethereum's Dencun upgrade went live. I think it was like 14 UTC or something like that. So it was like early morning my time on the west coast of the US. So let's hop in. I'm just gonna like chat and show you kind of the way I approach looking at the markets when I'm looking at them myself, just like on my own. And then if you have anything you want to specifically talk about or any questions or whatever, like feel free to put it in the chat and we'll just kind of hang out and talk through what's going on. So there's that. Yeah, so I'll hop into the Bitcoin price graph now, I think. We'll go here. So this is Gemini Active Trader, which I tend to default to because I think they're the least worst centralized cryptocurrency exchange. Usually what I'm doing when I'm looking at the markets is first it's, you want to have an awareness of what's going on in the news. So I pulled this up as well and I'll show it to you real quick. Our Discord, this like wasn't intentional, but our Discord, as it happens, has ended up it's like the best news aggregator tool that I've found because we've been able to create various like RSS feeds in our news channel on Discord. And yeah, so you can just check this out. I'm not like, I always feel weird about like plugging things that Seeds makes. And I need to get over that because Seeds is about helping people in need. And this actually is a useful tool. It's partly because you get so much hate if you do that, if you like talk about your projects, especially because of the misogyny in the space. So I'm like anxious to even talk about this, but we found that this news aggregator in our Discord is helpful because it's pulling RSS feeds, like I said, RSS feeds from various places, including things like the F Finance subreddit, which is the only good subreddit in the cryptocurrency world that I think is out there today. Many of the other subreddits are total garbage anymore. So I'm not going to like dive into this today, but you can check it out if you want. The link to our Discord is in the chat. Um, but yeah, because it's pulling things in, like there are Google alerts, it's getting information from Crypto Telegraph, from Cointelegraph, and just other various kind of bigger news websites in the crypto sector, as well as information from like a good quality subreddit. Kind of all of that's hanging out there. But I mean, the big news today, as I said, is Ethereum's upgrade. And so that's what makes things worth looking at right now and looking at heading into the upgrade. But it looks like, so it was successful. As I mentioned, it happened early this morning. Um, Typically, when I'm going through things myself, I think it's good to have a little bit of a ritual when you're checking things out. So for me, again, it's like being aware of the news. So you can use news aggregators to check that out, to help support yourself and just having an awareness of what's going on overall. And then I think it's good to just look at what Bitcoin's doing. So the reason for that, we'll take a look at the halving countdown clock here first. Yo, it's so close to breaking all-time highs again. It might break all-time highs in the next few minutes. We'll see. So this is a tool that I use regularly, watcher.guru/Bitcoin-halving, to give us a sense of when we can expect the next halving to happen. So you can see here that it's like 35 days away. Right now, it's expected to happen on April 19th, 2024. This is dependent on when a specific block on the Bitcoin blockchain is mined. So the date might fluctuate slightly. It was predicting April 20th previously. So yeah, check that out. It's worth having a sense of, because yeah, like I said, it's been a catalyst in huge market movements in the past. So then I would just check out, like what's actually going on in the Bitcoin markets. And looking at this, like I can see that it actually already broke all-time highs again this morning. Like early in the morning my time. So if you can see this graph, I have it on the 30-minute setting here. So you can select different time intervals to view the data and the graph. If this is like totally new, if this isn't, you haven't looked at a graphical interface like this before, to kind of acquaint you, over here you can see that there are various cryptocurrency and US dollar pairings that you can view. So if I'm clicking on BTC USD, this is giving me the price of Bitcoin in US dollars. So I can see here that, check it out, it already got up to like 73,662, it looks like, in the middle of the night, my time. So this would have been fueled by, what trade that's happening in Europe, probably. So that's interesting. Yeah, and then it had something of a pullback. So it came back down here. It looks like it dipped below 72,000, and now it's kind of trekking back up. So we can see if it's going to test those highs again. Huh. It's so, like, the other thing that's interesting and sort of atypical, I would say, about the way the market is moving now, and if we don't know one another, I started trading Bitcoin in 2013, and like before that, I was a professional stock trader. So I've been watching these events for whatever, going on 11 years. And in the past, it was so much more like in those bull runs when things would go up a ton, it would be much more like violent almost. This doesn't feel that way. It just feels optimistic. It's just continuing to build. We're not seeing, these huge surges and huge drops. It's just kind of consistently breaking its all-time highs. Like yesterday, it touched, this graph makes it look like it touched 73,000. And then there was a drop off. And you can see here, again, if this is an unfamiliar graphical interface for you, like people call these candles, these red and green blocks. Red means people are selling, green means people are buying. When it's thicker, there's more trade volume at that particular price, so more people are executing trades. If it's green, again, more people are buying at that particular price. So when you see a thin line like this extending below the candle, that means that there was just like a quick dip to the price that the line touches before it jumped back up, and there wasn't a lot of trade volume at that particular point. So like somebody got lucky, it looks like, and they were able to scoop some at like a little bit below 69,000. So good for them. Yeah, but it's just been like, this is pretty, yeah, like I said, it just feels optimistic. It's not jerking around. I mean, this is going to be a fun, I think, next several months. It just feels like it really wants to look at this. It's just kind of stair stepping, which is great for newer traders in particular. Yeah, it's just a lot less volatile, and there's still a ton of opportunity to get involved. So yeah, checking this out. Let me take a look at the chat. Sippin says, please tell me F. Please tell me F. Yeah, I'll take a look at Ether now as well. Um, I don't think I emphasized this earlier, but the reason that when I'm going through what's happening in the markets, I tend to look at Bitcoin first because Bitcoin is the oldest cryptocurrency. As I mentioned, it's over 15 years old now. It's the pioneering cryptocurrency because it introduced the concept of these technologies of decentralized crypto network. And it's the most expensive, obviously. So it still has an extremely strong influence on what happens in the rest of the sector. So to kind of illustrate that, if we go from over here from the Bitcoin graph to the Ether graph, like check this out again. Try to keep what this graph looks like in mind, and let's see how similar it is to the Ether graph. So like check that out, right? Like that's very, very similar. Even though Ether was the cryptocurrency that had this significant news event today because they had a big upgrade in the crypto network at large and it was successful. So yeah, you would think that maybe there would be more variance in terms of the price, but the prices are tracking super closely. So that's weird. And that I mean that in the sense that coming from, like a career as a professional stock trader, I can't think of instances where, I mean, if you were trading, say, like gold stocks or something like that, they would move in tandem. But beyond that, it's something that we can take advantage of in the cryptocurrency sector that I think doesn't really exist in the stock market in the same way, is that we can see different cryptocurrencies sort of moving together. But something that's significant is that at least historically, often the cheaper cryptocurrencies would outperform Bitcoin or Ether's also now more expensive cryptocurrency related to the prices of other cryptocurrencies in the sector. So you can use this information to get a sense of like, okay, we can see that Bitcoin's moving and Ether's moving. We know that things tend to trek together, but maybe there's a cryptocurrency that you're interested in that's trading at $1 or less than $1 or whatever it is. You can see those opportunities. And as I said in the past, last cycle, for example, if you put $1,000 into Bitcoin and $1,000 into Ether, you would have made exponentially greater profits with that $1,000 in Ether. Over the course of the crypto run, Ether outperformed Bitcoin in terms of percentage gain. So like, and then that could have been even larger if it was an even cheaper cryptocurrency. That happened with seeds, actually. I have the seeds price pulled up here. Seeds still haven't popped in this particular cycle, and I have to like include disclaimers, of course, and say that past performance doesn't guarantee future results and so forth. But like, again, I always feel weird about like saying positive things about seeds, even because there can be such cruel backlash when I've done that. But the fact is that the last cryptocurrency cycle, seeds went up much more than Bitcoin and Ether did. So if you put $1,000 into seeds at that time, you would have been helping someone in need, but then also you would have gotten this greater uh, return on your investment. So that holds pretty true across the cryptocurrency sector. And it's like I don't know, it's kind of a hack that you can use as a newer trader to figure out where to put some money for maybe shorter term gains and get a sense of yeah, just how to allocate the total investment amount that you're putting into cryptocurrency. So if we're looking at Ether here, okay, it's been hanging out around 4,000 now for a bit. I'm on the 6-hour graph right now. Yeah. Eddie says in the chat, so excited, but I need guidance on where to invest. I have 30K to invest. How should I diversify my crypto portfolio? Sure, I'll talk about my thoughts on that. Totally. Um, I mean, Eddie took our course before. The thing that I like to stress that I think is most helpful, because it's going to be different for every person, is that like I can share with you like what I personally think is exciting or interesting and where I'm putting my money when it comes to trading crypto. But at the end of the day, like you shouldn't listen to somebody else, frankly, even if you trust the person or they have a track record of being a profitable trader. I think it's much more useful to you as an individual we have this exercise in the course where we ask people to talk through their values, their financial goals and so forth, just kind of like a journal exercise. Because when you're defining what your values are and when you have sort of like tangible financial goals, it's going to guide you to certain cryptocurrencies that you're going to want to trade. And it's going to help you to prevent reactive trading when you hear about, like a particular cryptocurrency on social media, or you see a news event about that cryptocurrency. And that's helpful and important because maybe you've heard the term before, like buy the rumor, sell the news. Often by the time we're seeing those cryptocurrencies talked about in that way, like by people who aren't involved with the project or whatever, then the move has already happened and you've missed it. So when you're defining your values and your goals in advance, then that can give you the foundation to then start doing research to find the cryptocurrencies that most resonate with you, that you think are good quality projects. And also, if you're interested in shorter term trades, it can help you to find the cryptocurrencies that you just want to put some money in for because you think it's going to pop for a short amount of time that you then want to reallocate into something else. Hi, Jenny. Welcome. What's the course you're talking about? Sure. Yeah. I linked it in our chat. We just opened doors officially today. And the course supports seeds so that we can make sure that 100% of the gifts that come through the seeds ecosystem go to people in need. And the course includes seeds when you sign up. So it's like effectively free as well. So it's hopefully it feels like a win-win-win for everybody involved. But yeah, it's going to start in April. We're closing doors on the day of the Bitcoin halving. Actually, that's not correct because it's slightly changed. We're closing doors on the day of the Jupiter Uranus conjunction in Taurus, which is almost exactly when the Bitcoin halving is happening, April 20th. So yeah, if you're interested, it would be really awesome to have you. And it supports seeds so that we can help people out. Um, Tin Top says, any thoughts on BTC actually decorrelating from the stock market? Or do you think the ETFs have bonded the correlation? Yeah, that's a good question, Tin Top. I mean, I remember, okay, so in the last cycle, the previous Bitcoin halving, for those who weren't around or don't remember or whatever, that halving happened in May of 2020. And I remember sending an email to the Seeds community just prior to that, about 2 months prior, because things really tanked on March 9th. That's when the stock market crashed, if I recall. Crash is kind of a strong word, but people didn't know, like it was COVID. People didn't know what Trump in the States, anyway, was going to do to address the fact that COVID was now a thing. And so the stock market tanked. But I remember sending this email to the Seeds community because I thought it was interesting that crypto hadn't tanked. And then the following day it did. So I was at that time seeing what seemed like a decorrelation. And like back in the day, like that's the thing too, in 2013, when I started buying Bitcoin, I really felt like I was at a huge advantage because I'd been a professional stock trader, because I recognized by the way the markets were moving that a lot of the people who were trading crypto back at that time like didn't have experience trading in the stock market. The markets were moving very differently. So it felt like because I had that knowledge, I really had this huge advantage because at that time things were even less correlated. So yeah, I think that's a really good point, Tin Top, because it looks like things will be even more correlated because this Bitcoin ETF was introduced in January. And I feel like that has pros and cons. I mean, that opportunity, like anytime there's trade volume and volatility, even if it's jerking up and down in a crazy fashion, if you know what you're doing, those movements are an opportunity to make profits. So the fact that we're not going to have those as much, like it looks like this is just stabilizing things, is what I'm trying to say. So the con there is that, like maybe those opportunities for bigger, quicker profits aren't going to be present so much in the way that I observe them to be like 2013, 2014-ish. But at the same time, because things are more stable and because they're like viewed in the mainstream to be more legitimate, because now there's this Bitcoin ETF. And for anyone who's missed it, as I understand, they're expecting to introduce an Ether ETF in May. So like a month after the Bitcoin halving. So that's probably going to have a similar effect. So yeah, I think the correlation, at least in those two sort of major cryptocurrencies, is probably going to be tighter over time. So I think like we can look at it like to try and as much as possible to try and take advantage of maybe when there's that's sort of less the case now. But I mean, it's pretty strong. Like we're looking at these graphs, right? I showed you the Bitcoin graph, and then now we're looking at the Ether graph, and they're moving in similar fashion. But yeah, I think that might mean that the focus could be more so on finding those cheaper cryptocurrencies that may still be less correlated and maybe, like moving because of independent events that are fueling them and so forth. Thank you for the hearts. I appreciate it. But yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm kind of bummed out by it slightly, by this like stronger correlation that seems to be apparent between Bitcoin and Ether anyway, and the stock market, because it's just less fun. I didn't like here, we're looking at Gemini's platform, right? I've said this before, but what we're seeing right here in terms of the design of this platform and the way actually trading here works, it's like virtually identical to what I was staring at when I was a professional stock trader. So like this was necessary because people were going to want to buy cryptocurrency with fiat currency like the US dollar. And there's all kinds of regulatory red tape surrounding that. So, like, exchanges like these had to come into existence. But it kind of bums me out. Like, this isn't what was exciting to me about the potential and the technology that Bitcoin introduced. It it seems like it's a bummer to me in certain ways that just like plopping the old technology, the old financial system on top of this is like unfortunate in some ways, but then it's not in the sense that it's bringing more uh like mainstream investors to the sector. Yeah, so I think yeah, keeping an eye on those cheaper cryptocurrencies may be even more beneficial this cycle because of that correlation. We'll see what happens though. Yeah, if we're looking at Ether, so I was reading an article earlier this morning. It was just kind of summarizing what happened after Dencun went live early this morning, my time. You can see on the graph that like this is a 6-hour graph. Let's get a little bit more granular. So this is the 1-hour graph. Today's the 13th. So I mean, I think it went live around here-ish if we're looking at the time on the graph. So when we see this drop off here, this can happen sometimes where things get quote unquote priced in because of like an upcoming news event that a lot of people are aware of. So heading into this comes back again to that idea of like buy the rumor, sell the news. So people knew that Dencun was going to happen. It's almost with an upgrade like that, it can almost be what's the word I want to use? Like the thing there is that everyone is hoping and assuming that it's going to go well and there won't be any issues. If there had been an issue, a technical problem of some sort that disrupted, the developer's ability to get the upgrade live when they said they would, that could have impacted the price negatively. But when, like most people are just assuming, like, well, we know that there have been many previous upgrades that were successful, things can get priced in advance and things can head up. But then like when it just is successful and it's kind of boring in the way that you want it to be, because if it weren't boring, that could have meant like you just want those things to be sort of seamless. It's sort of better for the network as a whole when they are. Then people, sorry, judging by this graph, we're just like, okay, it worked and nothing really happened. So I'm going to take my profits and sell. So I would assume that that's what these red candles are showing us on the graph right here. So yeah, and it had gone up a bit. We can see that it was like flirting with 4,100 US dollars here and here. And then it had come back down and yeah, it's pulling back and hanging out again right below 4,000. We can't see it on this graph. If you came and hung out before any time I've done these, you might remember that for whatever reason, Gemini only shows us data that goes back for about a year. So if I put this on the day time interval, like this is only taking us back to March 14th of last year. So we can see that this is kind of fun to look at because it's been a significant increase in price since that time. But it'd be nice if we could see more data. As I recall, the all-time highs for Ether were like $4,800 a coin or something like that. So I think we've been hanging out around 4,000. Typically, it's just like a basic like human psychology thing because 4,000 is a round number that seems substantial when, like all-time highs were 4,800. So yeah, we've been kind of hanging out here. It's stair stepping again, like we saw, similar to what we saw on the Bitcoin graph. So I think, I mean, it's cool that it was trying to get up to 4,100. Looking at this, so okay, if we're going back to what I said earlier about this idea of the way that I encourage people to reflect on their values and their financial goals before choosing what cryptocurrencies to trade, because that really can be sort of like your guiding light when you're making cryptocurrency trades, and it helps prevent you from being a reactive trader, which tends to not be as profitable. You want to be proactive. If I was doing that for myself, I've talked about this a little bit previously, but like at the end of the day, my big thing is like I want to get us out of capitalism. I want humanity to transcend capitalism. And that's what made me interested in cryptocurrency in general in 2013. And back then it was like Bitcoin and Litecoin was around, and that was pretty much it. There were two-ish cryptocurrencies. When Ether was introduced, it went live in July of 2015, I believe. This was even more exciting to me because I apologize if I'm ever repeating things, but it's always weird in lives because you don't know who's joining for the first time and who maybe somebody doesn't remember that I've said this before or anything. Yeah, so I apologize for that. But it's worth repeating that Ether was even more interesting from my point of view as a person with that goal and that um, like it like pains me that we're trapped in this system. It really does. I think it's like such a huge waste of human potential because so many of us have to work jobs that we hate because we need money to survive. And that's why seeds exist. I want seeds to support people as we go through a shift where I think jobs are going to go away at large. AI is going to play a big role in that, I think. So Ether, relatedly, was interesting, more interesting to me than Bitcoin ultimately, because while Bitcoin introduced this decentralized network that was pioneering, it doesn't have a central entity controlling it in the way that fiat currency does. It's designed to be deflationary. Bitcoin is meant to be deflationary. There are only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin in total in existence. So that was fascinating. But when Ether was introduced, Vitalik Buterin, who's like the most visible Ethereum founder, even though they have like 8 co-founders, I think, his thing was like, Bitcoin is cool, but as a software engineer, I wish the network had been designed to make it easy for software engineers to build on top of it. So Ethereum was introduced to make that relatively easy to do. Seeds are built on Ethereum. So, like the network effects in that, I think are just, it's like evident that if a bunch of people have built on the network, and that again isn't possible, it's not that it's impossible, but it's difficult and hasn't been done as so much in the Bitcoin ecosystem, again, because it wasn't designed for that. But because that does exist within the Ethereum ecosystem, there are lots of projects and lots of people that are invested in Ethereum's success. And so the network effects of that over time create this likelihood that I think, Bitcoin, eventually I think Ether is going to eclipse Bitcoin. So that is cool. And it's also just like, it's more aligned with the energetic um, place that I'm at. It resonates with me much more so. When I've been to Ethereum events back in San Francisco in 2017, I remember I mentioned this before, but going to a couple events where I was just like, wow, like we're talking about like consciousness, and this just feels so much more feminine and creative. And, like when we've talked about NFTs, which were a big deal like 3 years ago, most NFT projects were built on top of Ethereum as well. So Ethereum had created the space for artists. So that is more aligned with where I'm at energetically and was more exciting to me. So I like trading Ether. I want to have a lot of Ether because I think these things not only align with my values, but I think they're gonna be successful. I'm not like above making shorter term trades with a cryptocurrency that I don't believe in so much. But typically I just do that because I want to make a quick profit and then put it back into another cryptocurrency that I believe in more so. So yeah. So Eddie, like I'd suggest doing that. Because like at the end of the day, it's you. You're the one who's making the trades, and like you're the one who, is responsible for the decisions you're making when you're investing. So you want to make informed decisions that align with what you actually care about, I think. Sabine, mindfulness, it's nice to see you. Do you have any advice on which decentralized exchanges are good or which ones would you recommend to buy via? Good question. Um, I'll answer Cecilia's question really quickly because it's like a shorter answer, and then I actually have a decentralized exchange I was gonna walk us through today. So Cecilia says, "Do you recommend buying Ether now or waiting for it to dip?" Yeah. So Cecilia, I'd say two things. The first is that, sorry if this is annoying to share, but at the end of the day, like always coming back to that maxim, buy low, sell high is, like that's what ultimately makes a profitable trader in markets like these. So yeah, if you can buy the dip, I think that's a good idea. And it's dipping now, like it's hanging out at 4,000. Looking at this graph, we're using a little bit of what's called technical analysis to like use graphical information to help us decide where it might be best to buy. If I'm looking at this, I see that like, okay, it dropped down to about 39.50 here, dropped a little bit below. Now it's back up at about 4,000. And up here, it was getting close to 4,100. I know that the Bitcoin halving is 35 days off. I know that this Ethereum ETF is expected to go live in May, in 2 months. So checking this out, and I also know, as I mentioned before, that all-time highs for Ethereum are Ether is the cryptocurrency, Ethereum is the crypto network, but you'll sometimes hear those words used interchangeably. But I know that all-time highs are around $4,800 a coin. So, I mean, I just kind of want to get in anywhere I can, frankly. But if I'm being more granular and precise, I might want to see here, like, okay, is it going to break through 4,000 right now and keep heading up? Because it's just kind of hanging out there. It doesn't seem like it knows what it wants to do. If we're looking over here, we can see, the ask are limit orders that people have made to attempt to sell at the specific price. The bids are orders that people have put in to buy at the specific price you're seeing and in the specific quantities you're seeing here. So if you check this out, we can see like quantity wise, there are larger bids on the buy side. Sometimes people can be playing with this and trying to trick other traders. So they'll put a big order in with no intention of actually getting it filled. So sometimes we can see these bigger orders and think like, oh, a bunch of people want to buy. I should probably get in now because these people are going to send the price up. But sometimes it's like a trick. But I mean, looking at this, we're seeing a bit more size on the buy side than we are in terms of people that want to sell. There's smaller-ish quantities showing up here. There's a really big order that keeps flashing in down here. So that, I mean, I have a sense that it feels bullish to me. So watching this, I try to catch it as low as I could. Nothing's really happening right now because the price is just hanging out. It's not like if it were really moving rapidly and I wanted to get in, I would use a market order over here because a market order will just hit the ask or the bid and get filled more quickly. If you put in a limit order, you're able to be more precise about the price, but you're not guaranteed to actually execute the trade because the market could move away from the price that you want before the order is filled. So what I'm trying to say is like it'd be cool. Like I want to see if it can drop down to like 39.50 again because that looks to be a bit of a price floor that was established earlier today. But I really just want to get in. If you're not able to check the markets several times a day, which most of us obviously aren't because we have other responsibilities, DCA, dollar cost averaging, can be a good option so that you're just, you're getting in, you're making buys at whatever interval makes sense for you, and you can automate that. But check it out, 3999.22. Like it looks like it might want to get above 4 right here. So yeah, Cecilia, for what it's worth, and like, never make a trade that doesn't resonate with you. Don't listen to me or to anyone. Don't do anything that doesn't align with your thoughts and your values and what intuitively makes sense for you. But I mean, I'm kind of thinking like I don't see a reason that it's going to drop back down significantly before the Bitcoin halving, barring some news event that just is totally insane. that nobody's expecting. And I can't imagine that happening. I mean, like in 2022, 2023, when things came down a lot, that happened because of news events surrounding, like these huge crypto projects, which were centralized, notably, which failed because they were corrupt effectively. Like they weren't managing money in the way that they should have been, while having custody of the funds of their users. And FTX was the one that was in the news all the time. So yeah, back then it was just like, man, we're hearing more about FTX so frequently. The market kind of can't come up until that goes away. So once he was convicted, I believe he was convicted, right? I think it was like on 7 counts. I think he maybe is getting sentenced now in March, but I don't even want to pay attention to what's going on with that guy. But yeah, so the reason I'm bringing that up is because those news events drove down the price of everything. And it was really annoying for me and for Seeds, for a lot of people, that it just drove things down when it was actually about bad centralization and somebody essentially like managing a bank poorly. Like the reason FTX failed was the same reason that banks have failed for hundreds of years. It didn't have anything to do with good quality decentralized cryptocurrency projects. Check it out. It's already at 4,006. Yeah, this looks really strong to me. So I'd be trying to buy. Now that it's up above 4,000, I'd just be thinking like, okay, I want to put in as much as I can at around this price. I'd be trying to load up. So yeah, Cecilia, I'm being long winded. I'm sorry, but what I'm trying to say is that like because it doesn't look like there's going to be something like that, like it seems like the FTX negative energy cleared out over the last couple of years. I don't see a reason that things would drive the market down such that we can really buy, uh, such that we can really buy Ether at a much lower price than it's at right now. It just looks so strong to me. So yeah, I think getting in now would be cool. That's what I want to do when I'm actively trading it. With Ether though, I just want to buy dips as much as I can. I automate trades as well, and I'm just trying to hold it because like I believe in it longer term. Yeah, you're welcome, Cecilia. Sabine says, nice to see you too. Thanks for this talk. Oh, you're sweet. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, Sabine. I told you that Cecilia's answer would be short and then it wasn't short. Yeah, but to go back to Sabine's question, do you have any advice on which decentralized exchanges are good versus which ones you would recommend to buy via? So I did want to show y'all, I have like another setup on Uniswap. And I thought we'd go into that. So Uniswap is not perfect, and there's some energy there that is not great in my experience. They were kind of assholes when we dealt with them. The other concern, to an extent, is that they're super backed by like fancy venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, the fanciest ones, in fact. A16Z, Andreessen Horowitz is, I think, their largest investor. Excuse me, their lead investor anyway. So that's potentially problematic. If you go around, like Jack Dorsey, for example, the Twitter founder, has criticized this. It's potentially problematic because it means that the same fancy venture capitalists who like control big tech in Silicon Valley essentially also have a huge stake in Uniswap and its success. So that can mean that, I mean, it means that they're very well resourced, for one example. So we as traders can, if we're aware of that, we can take advantage of it. I don't like using that phrase, but you know what I'm saying? Like if we know that news, we can use it and benefit from it to use the money that we make for whatever we see is an appropriate use of those funds. Something that was interesting about this to me is that, so Uni, for y'all who weren't around or like messing around with Uniswap in 2020, they had a surprise airdrop, and I think it was September of 2020. And I've said this a bunch of times before, but please stake your cryptocurrency. It's not without risk, of course, but I was staking then, and I'd staked a good portion of my cryptocurrency, but I had a bunch of cryptocurrency just chilling in a wallet, not doing anything, that I had not staked. And Uni's the name of the cryptocurrency. When they had this surprise airdrop, they were rewarding people for staking essentially. So like I lost out on so much money. I was very grateful for the money that I got in that surprise airdrop. It was wonderful. But I could have received so much more, like literally enough to buy like a nice house in the US if I had simply staked the remainder of the cryptocurrency that I had. So as I've said before, like don't be like me. I really strongly suggest staking. When you're not staking, it's kind of like hiding your cash under a mattress or something. There's an analogy there, but again, it's not without risk, of course. So make sure you feel confident about what you're doing. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is because typically what we would see in the past with airdrops, which are just like free money when like you might just see cryptocurrency show up in your wallet. Sometimes those are scams, so you have to be careful and make sure it's a legit project and a legit cryptocurrency. But typically what we'd see is like there'd be an airdrop, there'd be like a lot of conversation about it and whatever. And then people would just sell the cryptocurrency. Like everyone who received it for free would sell it. And then that would destroy the price. And then like, like it would just be low. The price would be low, like ongoingly. With Uni, the price kept going up. And I'm so sure I haven't read anything about this or anything, but it just seems evident to me that like if you have the fanciest venture capital firm around, like backing you. Andreessen Horowitz also is an investor in Coinbase. Therefore, I'm sure because of that relationship, Uni was available for trade on Coinbase like right away. Typically, you're not going to see that. Oftentimes, cryptocurrencies will be available on decentralized platforms like Uniswap. And then, like, later, they'll have an introduction on a centralized platform like Coinbase. And then the price can go way up when that happens as well, but that was like immediate. They planned that. They choreographed that when Uni did the airdrop. So, I mean, I'm sure having that huge financial tech power behind the project is a big part of why Uni just kept going up after that airdrop. So, like, I was grateful because I was able to benefit from that, but it's also concerning in another sense because like that's not decentralized truly, right? Like decentralization is a spectrum. Nothing is purely decentralized and nothing is purely centralized in anything that I've ever seen in governing structures, certainly in economic structures. But it just, I don't know, it's something to be aware of. So I'm saying all of this with that caveat. Like, Uniswap is good quality. They were dicks when we talked to them. So they think it's cool to be like mean to social good organizations for some reason. Um, and they have these like fancy venture capitalists behind them who are not motivated by decentralization, and like they're not motivated by like reworking the economic system per se because they benefited so much from the economic system as it currently exists. You know what I'm saying? So all that said, Uniswap is still, I think, the go-to for decentralized platforms because it's the pioneering platform. They were introduced in November of 2018 and they figured something out that nobody else could figure out, which was really exciting and a huge fucking deal. And I think it's inspiring, which is that they figured out a way for us to democratically provide enough liquidity, more democratically anyway, provide enough liquidity so that traders can trade on the platform without us having to rely on like the Winklevoss twins or whatever to put up the capital in the way that was the case on a centralized platform like Gemini. So that's why staking is cool. When you're staking, you're participating in adding liquidity to the trading pool so that traders can execute trades on a decentralized platform. And then you get paid fees by the traders instead of those fees going to Gemini or the New York Stock Exchange or whatever. So that's so exciting. I mean, it obviously doesn't mean it's so exciting to me anyway. It obviously doesn't mean that like super rich people aren't also staking. Of course they are as well, and the rewards that you receive are still um what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, you're receiving trading fees based on the amount that you've staked, but you can leverage your capital in different ways. This is sort of like a little bit more advanced, and there are more advanced trading strategies that you can look at in that regard. But what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, I think Uniswap is still the go-to. If I'm naming a decentralized platform that I'll name two that I would discourage folks from using. One is Sushi Swap. I think they just call it Sushi now. So when Uniswap was introduced, like this is all open source. Any of us could take this code and make our own Uniswap if we wanted to. We'd have to build our own front end, I think, but So yeah, it's all open source. And so this organization called Sushi Swap um, ripped off Uniswap. If you go to Sushi Swap's platform, at least if you did back in the day, which is only a few years ago, it just seems like things have moved so fast in the cryptocurrency sector. Yeah, they just ripped Uniswap off basically, and they could do that because it was an open source project. Uniswap has since introduced restrictions on that. Like, I think they added a license so that future versions of Uniswap's platform, nobody can do that for, I think, 2 years. But yeah, so I'm just sharing that because, like, if you're like me and you think, like, oh, I don't really want to mess around with the gross energy in cryptocurrency, Sushi Swap kind of is that because, like, they just ripped off this project and whatever. So that's one that I would discourage using. However, because they literally just ripped off Uniswap's code, it's of decent enough quality. The code is fine. The code has been audited by like many different software engineers who know what they're looking at. So there's that. The other decentralized, quote unquote, because it's not decentralized platform I would discourage people from using is Binance's platform. I think it's Pancake Swap. I believe that's what they called it. I try to avoid Binance things as much as possible. If you find that Binance is behind a tool, like for example, Binance owns Trust Wallet as well, I just kind of steer clear of using it because Binance is not trustworthy, first of all. And then also, like, they're not good at shit. Like, they're not building good quality projects. Um, so they acquired Trust Wallet, so it's a little bit of a different situation. But yeah, so if you don't want to use, okay, so let's take a look at Uniswap actually, because I wanted to show you a few things that are related to the Dencun upgrade today. Um, to backtrack just quickly, I want to say that the reason Ethereum's Dencun upgrade, which again went live this morning, my time at least on the west coast of the US, the reason Dencun is significant is because it's going to make layer two, what are called layer two solutions, layer two protocols cheaper. Okay. So, like, if you've ever tried to trade anything on Uniswap, for example, Sabine's like, say no to pancake and sushi. Yeah, I mean, do what feels right for you. But yeah, that's kind of my thing at the end of the day because I don't think the energy it's not the energy that I want to, like, it just feels gross as I'm even describing it. And I'm like averse to it, which is another thing I need to work on. But yeah. But that said, this is a big deal because if we're looking at Uniswap here, if we want to go, so I'm in the Explore tab. If we go to swap, this is where we can actually make trades. So if you've ever tried to use a platform like Uniswap, 1inch is another decentralized platform built on Ethereum. Um, for example, you know that gas fees can be totally insane. Like the fees that you're forced to pay in order to execute trades can be so high that it does not make sense to make that trade, right? So that's been a huge problem for a long time. They haven't totally, it hasn't really been addressed on what's called the mainnet, the Ethereum mainnet. So if we're on Uniswap's platform here, we can toggle between different, like here's the Ethereum mainnet. What's listed here are various L2 solutions, layer 2 solutions built on top of the Ethereum mainnet with the purpose of offering people essentially like cheaper ways to trade. This matters because today with the Dencun upgrade, suddenly it's going to be cheaper to trade on these L2 solutions because of the way the data is being stored on mainnet essentially. So like we don't have to have a deep technical understanding of how that's going down. At the end of the day, as traders, like we just need to know that this is technologically speaking going to make fees cheaper on layer 2s. Speaking of stuff I would suggest avoiding, like I mentioned Binance things, BNB chain is Binance's Ethereum ripoff, basically. They do feature it here on Uniswap because I think it was just widely used because Binance is the biggest cryptocurrency exchange in the world, even today, even with all the drama and they got hacked for $41 million in 2019 and they got convicted of money laundering last year. Like there have been all kinds of things that have come to light in relation to Binance, but they're still popular. And this is their Ethereum ripoff, BNB chain. So I would not suggest using that. It's not truly decentralized. I don't even remember, and it's not worth going into right now. They use they're tricking people kind of. They use a consensus mechanism, which is pretty centralized, which just means that their powerful people are they have too much power within that network, I would say. And yeah, so I just wouldn't mess around with that unless like maybe there's something you really want to trade. Maybe it's a short-term trade for you. Maybe it's a meme coin or something. And you're like, well, I think this is going to pop. Like, I'll make a little bit of money short term and then I'm going to take it out and move that money into something else. And if you can only do that by using BNB chain, like, okay. But I would just suggest strongly, like, getting your money off of it and into a good quality self custody wallet on a reliable chain, like I would say Ethereum's is, as soon as possible. This is also, I think, worth mentioning then. This makes me think that, like, when I'm talking about Ether and how Ethereum resonates with me, last cycle, 2021 ish, there were so many copycats. Like, it was interesting. Every cycle is kind of interesting as like a cultural, sociological exploration, I think. And like NFTs were a huge thing last cycle, which drove price up a lot. But then also, there were tons of projects that were like, oh, Ethereum is too expensive. Gas fees are crazy. They're way too high. So we're going to build a different Ethereum. And here it is, right? So BNB Chain was like essentially Binance's answer to Ethereum, and fees were a lot cheaper, which is another reason people used it. What I found interesting is that since that time, like I almost never hear about any of those Ethereum competitors anymore. The only one you still maybe hear a little bit about, I would say, is Cardano. Their cryptocurrency is called ADA. And they're sort of a different case because the founder was actually also a co founder of Ethereum. And he left early in the process because he thought the project should be designed in a different way. And so he went and did that. I've traded Cardano ADA in the past, but it was just like for a short term trade when they launched on centralized exchanges. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that even though Ethereum is like OG, it's better. I think the energy is better. I think there's a reason that we saw so many copycats, certainly, and that so many of them, at least in my view and what I've seen when I'm checking the markets and trying to stay up to date on what's going on, I don't really see a lot of them talked about now. Um, yeah, there are other projects I could touch on. It's already getting close to noon my time here, though. I haven't even actually made a trade either. But yeah, hopefully it's helpful that I'm sharing kind of the way I think about all these things. Yeah, so let me see. Hey, Cody, what's up? Welcome. Yay. Um, okay. Yeah, so anyway, I thought it was worth showing you this on Uniswap's platform in part because, like because today was the Dencun upgrade and it's literally making layer 2 solutions cheaper. If we're going to look at layer 2 projects that maybe we want to trade, going to the biggest decentralized platform, which is Uniswap, to see which layer 2 solutions they offer is probably a decent way to figure out which are popular enough to maybe have more trade volume because of this update, right? So like we can see here, Arbitrum is one, Optimism, Polygon. Maybe you've heard of some of these projects in the past. So you could check these out. Like if we look at this, okay, so like Optimism, I'm not going to switch things here because this will actually change the network that I'm trading on. And I don't want to do that right now. I just want to trade on the Ethereum network, the Ethereum mainnet. But I want to see the prices. And some of these projects don't trade on centralized exchanges. Like Optimism is not on Gemini. Sorry, I just told you I wasn't going to do that and then I clicked on it. Yeah, but if we use this as a reference point and I just want to see Optimism's price, for example, then I can go here and check that out on Uniswap. So yeah, we can kind of see it looks like Dencun didn't really do a ton to the price here either. Like around here, I think, is the time at which Dencun was live. And then the price has been coming back down. So yeah, we can check this out to see like, okay, maybe I want to buy this pullback. I don't know. Do I believe in this project long term? If I'm talking about Optimism as an example, uh, it's worth noting that I got I think it was like I don't know, 2,500 or so optimism in an airdrop. So again, y'all like stake, make sure you're staking. Cause I got it because I'd staked on optimism and, like just wound up with this free money, which now would be worth over $10,000, but I sold it. I sold it a little while ago. Um, yeah. So optimism is a project I've messed around with. I like it more than Arbitrum. I remember the Arbitrum founder saying that they weren't going to introduce a coin, and then they did. So I don't know. I'm just like, why do that? Like, what's the point of doing that? Just don't say anything if you're not sure. I don't know. Yeah. So I'm more inclined to want to use optimism. It just feels better to me. That happened. I like optimism is more resonant if I'm going to use a layer 2 solution, but we can look at Arbitrum's price on here as well. Another thing that's worth noting though about optimism is that I believe I think Andreessen Horowitz is also their biggest investor. So it's like that firm, Andreessen Horowitz, is investing in Coinbase, Uniswap, and Optimism, I believe. So again, you can use that information to try and inform your trades, but it's also good to be aware of because it might mean, if a super fancy, super rich firm is a large investor, that maybe it's not as of the people as we might hope with a decentralized project. Um, Cody Garcia says, is there a site to check current fees for Ether? Yeah, good question. Cody, you can just go to etherscan.io, which is like the most popular block explorer for Etherscan. And then you'll see, I don't know if I can pull it up here without like disrupting. I might be able to. See if I can show you real quick. There's like a little gas pump icon at the top. Let me see if it'll let me show you that. Is it letting me show you? Yeah, up here so we can see gas. And then we can see the fee here, 62 GUI. And if we click on that, it gives us a sense of how this relates to other times, gas fees at other times. Make sure y'all can see. Yeah, you can see that. Cool. Yeah, so you can check that out. And then this actually shows you like, okay, a swap right now, the low price is $90. Like what? So like this is why layer 2 solutions have been introduced. So that's very expensive. That's not going to make your trade worthwhile unless you're trading, thousands of dollars probably. So that's a big problem. So that's what layer 2 protocols are trying to help address. Yeah, so there's that. It's almost noon, and I didn't want to keep y'all for too long. Yeah, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? I feel like I should also say that if you're newer to this sector and if this feels just like a fire hose of information, don't feel bad because I find, and other people I knew that were like professional traders, it's just kind of like that in the beginning. When I was a pro stock trader, the way I learned was they literally sat you at a desk with like a senior trader who was assigned to you, and you watched that person trade and you made trades yourself, and they were like looking over your shoulder to make sure you didn't do anything too crazy. And it just felt overwhelming at first, but it's like sipping from a fire hose, in that you're getting a little bit each time you try to go in, and then eventually one day you've absorbed enough that you're able to make trades yourself with confidence. And that's what we try to replicate in our course. As I said before, the course supports seeds so that we can make sure 100% of the gifts that come through the seeds ecosystem help people in need. It's linked in the description if you want to join. I always feel weird about talking about it, but I have to get over that. Sorry, I keep saying that. Yeah, and the course is effectively free because it includes Seed's cryptocurrency when you pay. So hopefully that sounds like a good deal. We try to make it as generous as we can so that we're sustaining the Seeds project and also like offering information to people with a lot of healthy feminine energy because we want you benefiting from these tools. Yeah, so that's in the description, and it's going to start in April. We're timing it so that it's happening like right around when the Bitcoin halving happens. So we'll see how that goes. You're welcome, Sabine. Eddie says, will the recording be available to watch later? Yeah, Eddie, it'll be at this link. It's at the same link. And I'll So you should have that in an email, I assume, and then it's also in our Discord. Just and you have it right now, obviously, because you're here. And then I'll probably edit it slightly and repost it to my YouTube as well, so that there's like a slightly better edited version available. Tintop says, I honestly think some chains are chosen ones and highly promoted to retail, and others that are more decentralized, freedom oriented, are being gate kept. Don't get me started on privacy chains either. Yeah, right. Yeah, like Tintop, we could have like a whole like philosophical conversation about that. I feel you on that. And yeah, I mean, there are other projects like Lido or Lido. I don't think I've ever heard the word pronounced. LDO is the symbol for the token. Um, I'm sure you're familiar with this, but it relates to Ethereum validators and staking on Ethereum. Um, yeah, I probably shouldn't go into it too much right now, but as I understand, like they're hugely invested in by Andreessen Horowitz as well. And that's probably the most concerning project because it's literally like it's close to the structure itself of Ethereum. Yeah, and so I feel weird about a lot of that. But it's also like the way I think about it too is like we still exist within a late stage capitalistic system. Like seeds exist within late stage capitalism. So like I'm showing y'all how to trade on these markets that are like that are that design, like Gemini's design hasn't changed for decades, right? The way that looks on a screen. So like it's like we have to deal with the reality as it is. We have to work within the reality that is the remaining existence of late stage capitalism, but we can start putting our energies and our money and our time and our attention into projects that we feel are actually helping to get us out of that, right? And like so some of the better quality projects can do that, and hopefully seeds can help us do that too. And yeah, so that's kind of how I think about it, like accepting the reality as it currently is, but understanding that it does seem to be changing and trying to point my attention toward the change. But yeah, I feel you. Eddie says, "Oh, thanks, Eddie. That's really nice. I highly recommend our course. Took it last time. Thank you. That's very sweet." Yeah, Eddie, and yeah, and anyone else who's joined the course in the past, you're always invited to join future courses at no cost too. So it can be a way to kind of stay informed if you want. Um, yeah. Cody says, I appreciate you, Rachel. I love talking with people about crypto and the technology. I'm working on a project to have a space for healers to talk about this along with financial skills. That's awesome, Cody. Yeah, if we can support that, it'd be really cool. You can always redeem a seed to ask for help for financial support too, if you want to do that. That's so exciting. I just got to chill. That's really cool that you're doing that, Cody. Yeah, I hope if y'all know other people who are healers, who are spiritual, who are working on things, who understand that the current system isn't serving us as it could be, um, please like let us know how to reach them. I've been really having a hard time. I mean, I've had a hard time for years with that because the crypto sector so is not of that energy at large, as many of y'all have heard me talk about. But even like I posted a video about misogyny a couple days ago. I got so many hateful comments and it just like made me kind of want to shut down. And I know that now isn't the time for us to do that. Like those of us who are feeling this energy need to be sharing it more and speaking about it so we can connect with each other. So yeah, if we can help each other connect with like that like-minded spirit and others, and you know folks like that, like please tell me how to connect with them because I feel like we're too decentralized or something. I'm like we're not connecting with each other enough. We're not aware enough of each other's projects, and if we were, we'd support each other more. So yeah, it'd be great to hear more about that. Yeah, cool. Yeah, Jenny's a healer too. Yeah, right on. All right, y'all. I really appreciate your time and attention. I'll let you go because it's a little after noon. Um, yeah, and I want to invite you to that if you like helping people in need, you'll get Seeds cryptocurrency and thanks if you do so. The link is in my bio. And yeah, the idea there is that we want to build abundance, monetary abundance for people because they help folks in need. Because if people who are giving have more resources, they're going to do more to benefit this world. It's about transcending the old system and the way it totally compartmentalizes giving and building abundance yourself. So if that resonates and if you found value in any of what was shared here, I hope you'll consider helping someone in need through Seeds. And I think that's all I got. Come hang out in our Discord too if you want. That's linked in the description as well. And we can chat there. And I check that every workday. And yeah, it can be a helpful resource too. Okay. Oh, Steina has a question. Do you recommend buying BTC at the current price? Sorry if you already discussed. I missed the first half. Also, can you share a link to sign up for your course? Sure. The link for the course is in the description. And I would recommend I'll hop back into it real quick. Let's see. So we can take a look at that graph real quick since you're asking. So if we go back here, basically like what I said earlier when we talked about this a bit, Stina, is like buy low, sell high is what the ideal, the annoying adage that we can remember to help ourselves trade. Because the thing is, when you're panicking, buy low, sell high, like you're not thinking about that. Excuse me. And those are the moments that can sometimes be the best opportunities when things look more uncertain. With this being so strong, like these are all-time highs again right here. We just broke all-time highs again this morning, you know? And this is like the fourth time this cycle, and it's still 35 days until the Bitcoin halving. And in the past, the Bitcoin halving has kicked off the cycle. So the fact that it's already kicking off like this far in advance is a super, super strong sign that is unprecedented. So what I would say is just like try to buy the dips if you can. I mean, like here, you could have caught it maybe at 72.5, even 72,000 if you manage to get that. And you can put in limit orders for that specific price and just leave them in the hopes that they'll get filled later. But if things start really going up, they won't get filled. So when it's more urgent, you want to use a market order so that you're likelier to get filled. You almost certainly will get filled with a market order like right away. Just the price might not be as great as you would have hoped. Yeah, so I mean, you can check this out. It's stair stepping. The graph is stair stepping a bit. So maybe try to catch it at a little bit of a pullback if you can. But if you're not actively looking at the markets many times a day, I'd suggest probably DCAing, dollar cost averaging, just setting up an automatic purchase so that you are getting in, but you're not necessarily having to spend the time and energy trying to be super precise about price because it just looks strong. And yeah, things are still so early. It just looks like it might be a super crazy year, is what I would say. So we'll see. All right, y'all. I'm gonna let you go. Um, we're at vacation. You're very welcome. Thank y'all. I appreciate you so much. Okay. I will let you go and I'll catch you next time. I'm probably going to do these a little more often, I think, since things are picking up and they're fun and it's just nice to get to talk to you. So, okay, I'll catch you later. Bye.